Okay, hi, I'm Joe. I have so many favorite reads. Like, I read last year, I read like 100 books, and I have so many five-star reads and favorite books. And it was hard, but I managed to pick 12. Only 12. That's like not a lot considering like at least in Goodreads I have like 56 books and there's more. Like I did not every book I loved. So yeah, I tried to add less books and I will try and not speak like some of them I know I'm gonna ramble, but I will try to oh my god. I will try to not talk about all of them so much because I know there I go, touching my nose. So I will begin. Like I feel like some of the books are like cheating because there's some series, but we're gonna ignore that because I will only talk about the first book of the series because obviously the rest of the books are spoilers. So yeah, we're basically going to talk about 12 books. I Okay, so the dynamic is basically this. I'm gonna tell you about a book that I loved. Like I don't like to talk about books like telling you all that happens because sometimes it's nice to go read a book without knowing anything at all about the book. And many of these books are like that. Like I went into the books blindly because I love going blindly into books. I will tell you when you have to go blindly and where I like you may like to know about the book. Some of the books are famous, obviously, so you already know what they're about. But yeah, so the first book, it's famous. It's a trilogy, but I will only talk about the first book. Did I even finish saying what I was going to say? I'm a mess. I'm going to tell you a quote I liked from each book. That's what I wanted to say. Okay, back to the first book. It's a trilogy, famous. It's sci-fi, fantasy. It has a lot of everything. It's the Poppy War. If you haven't if you haven't heard about the Poppy War, it's like adult sci-fi fantasy. I'm gonna tell you all like the genres and stuff, so you know. It's intense. So if you want to read it, look trigger warnings because holy fucking shit. That was I so I read the Poppy War December last year, so it's recent. But the last book, The Burning God, I read it January, so I have everything recent in my brain. I loved it so much. I don't want to talk much about it because I'm gonna cry because I loved it so much. I'm gonna cry. I don't know how to explain it. But I have my computer here with everything I need to tell you. So the quote I have for the Poppy War is this one. Children cease to be children when you put a sword in their hands. When you taught them to fight a war, then you armed them and put them on the front lines. They were not children anymore. They were soldiers. So, if you want to know a little about the book, what can I tell you? Well, our main character is Fang running. There's the rain. Can you listen to it? I don't care. I'm gonna keep filming. That's like background music. I don't know. Enjoy the rain. But the fucking sun is out. So, I don't even know. This country. Oh my fucking god. Yeah, and the Poppy War, it's a 5-star read for me. I love the Poppy War. I enjoyed it so much. I wanna cry. So it's basically our main character, Fang running, and it's about her journey, basically. And I don't want to tell you much more. You can look it up, honestly, because you have to know the trigger warnings and stuff. It's about war. It's basically war fantasy. So, and there's obviously an art called shamanism. It has to do with gods, stuff like that. So yeah. My second book, it's We Hunt the Flame, also a series, it's a duology. I read it. And the second book, it's called We Free the Stars. I read it November last year. There are recent reads, everything, I think, yeah. So, We Hunt the Flame, it's also a fantasy YA. Also trigger warnings technically, but not that much as the Poppy War, obviously. So We Hunt the Flame. Most people love the second book more, but I love the first book more. Like the We Hunt the Flame more. I love that. And we have like the fun family trope, of course. We have a romance, beautiful romance, and it's like fantasy romance, like with the slow burn. It's technically enemies to lovers, I think, but it's more like, yeah, it's technically enemies. They were enemies. Yeah, it's enemies to lovers. Yeah, you know. So, I have one quote that says, the quote I have is, "This was pain worse than a sword. This was forgetting and then remembering everything afresh. The curse of memories." Yeah, fucking quote. So the next book I read it in October, was my last read of October. I don't know if you're listening to the rain, but it got intense. Fade! Hey, she's outside. Come inside! Fade!
What the dog doing?
Whatever. We have Piranesi. I read it in October. I loved it. And I read it like my last read in less than 24 hours. Such a fast read. This is one of those books you cannot know anything going into it, like about the plot. It's fantasy. I think it's adult. I don't know much because I went blindly into the book. And if you don't know Piranesi, it's like an artist, and he's famous for doing labyrinths and stuff like that. That's all I'm gonna say about the book. And I have a quote that says, "Perhaps that is what it is like being with other people. Perhaps even people you like and admire immensely can make you see the world in ways you would rather not." The whole thing is about a person who is like trapped inside of a place. So yeah, and it's kind of disturbing because you're following, like, the narrator is obviously unreliable. It's first person. The other two were not first person, but this one is. And he's unreliable because he doesn't know what the fuck is going on. And at some point you know what's going on, but he still doesn't. So that's kind of icky, but it was for Halloween, so I loved it. Next, we have one of my favorite reads of last year, and I have it right here because I have a physical copy. I'm so proud of myself because I have a physical copy of this book. But I also have an amazing review that I did about this book. Here it is. If We Were Villains, M.L. Rio. It's basically like, it's about Shakespeare technically, but if you don't like Shakespeare, like, I wasn't a Shakespeare fan before reading this book, but now I am. So if you want to get into Shakespeare, go right now. And go read it. And it's like cool because we have like first act, and then we have like the next act, and we have like scenes, and we have chapters. But if it's normal, it's like a normal book technically. Yeah. But we have a lot of, it's dark academia, so they are like pretentious and quoting Shakespeare and rich and stuff. And it's like a crime, basically a murder mystery, whodunit. But like, I knew whodunit like from the first page. This book is very famous, so I was scared I was not going to like it, but I loved it. So I have one quote that it's the quote that I think like sums up the whole book, and it's how I began like my review. It starts with the quote that says, "Actors are by nature volatile, alchemic creatures composed of incendiary elements, emotions, and ego and envy. Heat them up, stir them together, and sometimes you get gold, sometimes disaster." So yeah, I had read, like, my previous book was so awful. I was crying. I don't remember which one was, but I hated it. And I was like, please, If We Were Villains, be good. I will not say more about it. I'm like not saying anything about the books because I don't want to spoil them for you. But I'm like, yeah, I will not say anything more. You just have to read it. I swear, if we were villains, it's like I say it a lot. I said like it's okay. It's dark academia. It's like mystery. I don't know if it's thriller. I don't think so. And it's obviously not horror. But basically, we are following a person in the future, and he basically just got released from jail, and he was accused of killing someone, one of his classmates in college. But we are discovering little by little that he may or may not be guilty for the murder. So we are following 7 people, and they are fucking amazing, and but they are morally gray, of course. And yeah, look at the beginning. Enter the players. There were 7 of us then, 7 bright young things with white precious futures ahead of us, till we saw no farther than the books in front of our faces. That's basically it. So yeah. The next book I'm gonna talk about is Vicious, I think. So that's a duology, and it's gonna be a trilogy someday when V Schwab finishes like the book. I never read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and I was like, that's gonna be my first read of the author because it's one of her most famous books. But I kept postponing it because in my brain somehow I thought it was young adult. It is not. I haven't read it yet. But Vicious, it's adult, and it was like her first adult book. And I was interested because it's like villains, and I read it in September last year. I even remember the months. Am I okay? So I read Vicious, and then immediately I read like the second book, and I loved them a lot, both of them. So I have a quote, I think, but also my review was amazing. Oh, I first talked about if we were villains, and now I'm talking about the villains duology. That's kind of cool. It wasn't on purpose. So I have a quote at the beginning of my review that I loved. So it says, there were some people you had to stay away from, people who poisoned everything in reach. Then there were people you wanted to stick with, the ones with silver tongues and golden touches. And then there were people you stood beside because it meant you weren't in their way. So I gave it only 4 stars, so this is technically does not go here, but the second book is a 5-star for me. I know people usually like the first one more, but I like more the second one, how it's written, because this one was like, I say it in my review, it's like so fast-paced. I read it so fast, and I like with Dark Academia to take some time to read, or at least to have to force myself, like not force, but like work towards reading the book. I like to put my brain to think. I don't know. So yeah, that was like my only problem with the book. But it basically follows. For this one, you do have to know what's it about. I think it's not fantasy technically, is it? It's more sci-fi. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's fantasy, sci-fi, fiction, etc. So we follow. It's almost like if we were villains, because we're in the future. We get a character who just got released. Well, he escaped jail, and his name is Victor Vale. And we have Victor in the present, and he's trying to find his ex-best friend from college. And basically, in this universe we are in, people like get powers, like the X-Men, and he and his friend Eli from college, they experimented to get powers. They obviously got them because that's the whole book. But yeah, so they had problems in the past, and it's like Dark Academia, obviously, because they're in college and they're like geniuses. But it's also like the fantasy and the science fiction of getting the powers. So we are following all of these people with powers, but yeah, and we have more characters, but I don't want to talk about it, and I cannot tell you what their powers are because that's kind of a spoiler. And I enjoyed like writing down. I had like a notebook, and I was like writing down like, so I think that Eli's power is this one, and I think that yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. And it's like the process of how they get their powers. You get to see that, and what does it mean? Oh my god, I'm quoting Miley Cyrus. Yeah, and how do they get specific powers? Like they don't get to choose them, but you'll see. You have to read it. And like people sometimes do not read the second book because they're like, oh no, it's not so much about Victor. It's more about Eli. Like it's telling the story of Eli, like past, because we don't get his past in the first book. But I did like it. Like, they're all villains, so you can people pick who they like and who they do not like. So I don't like Eli. I prefer Victor, but you can like whoever you want. They're not redeemable. They're morally gray. Everyone is morally gray. So just enjoy it. Oh my god, Daisy Jones and the Six! And I have a quote that says okay, so I have a quote that says, "The chosen ones never know they are chosen. They think everyone gets a gold carpet rolled out for them." And that's a good quote, but the best quote, it's at the beginning of the book. Okay, so I had absolutely no interest in being somebody else's muse. I am not a muse. I am the somebody. End of fucking story. Oh my god. Okay, so this book, the only thing I can tell you, like, the main thing, it's like how it's written. So it's like an interview. We're getting even a TV show. It's like this. Like you get the name of who's telling the story and what they're saying. So but it's amazing. I was so dubious at first because I read first The Seven Husbands, obviously, because like this is in the same universe as The Seven Husbands. So you first have to read The Seven Husbands, then you read this one, not necessarily, and then you read Malibu Rising. I'm gonna sneeze. So you first have to read The Seven Husbands, not necessarily, but it's amazing if you do it like that. That's how I did it. And it wasn't like on purpose. I was halfway through reading this one when I discovered that. So I was like, oh my god. I have The Seven Husbands physical copy too, but it's so like people talk about it a lot. So I said like I don't need to give it like more hype. It's an amazing book, not so great representation, but whatever. This one, it's better. Daisy Jones, it's like one of my favorite books. Like If We Were Villains and Daisy Jones are my favorite books from last year, along with another one I haven't talked about. But yeah, so it follows Daisy and it follows the Six. That's like a fictional band and she's like a fictional singer. So we're following them and basically they're like telling the story that caused the band to separate and telling like all this stuff that happened, like the rise and fall of the band. So that's what we're following basically. It's enjoyable. I loved it a lot and it has some of the best quotes I ever read and it's like the format and stuff, it's fucking amazing. So 10 out of 10. Okay, so this is me editing. I know I'm a mess, but just listen. And the video, it's too long. It's like 30 minutes. So I decided to cut it and I'm gonna post like a first part and then I'm gonna show you like a second part. Even though at the beginning I was like, it's only 12 books. Yeah, I was fucking lying. Like it's 12 books, but I talk a lot. I rambled on every book. So yeah, I'm gonna cut it and yeah, so you'll see the rest next week, I guess, or maybe the one above. I don't know because I want to like post a wrap up, but we'll see. Okay, so I think I'm gonna add something else after this and I'll see you next week. Oh yeah, I'm gonna leave my Goodreads in case you want to see any of the reviews I mentioned. I will leave it in the description below. You can add me. I don't have a lot of I don't have a lot of friends in Goodreads, I think. No, I don't have a lot of friends. You can add me. I will add you back if you like the same books as me. I will see you on my next video. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one and go read the books. Go read them. Read them. Go.